Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 83. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Ow! Could you possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, in some very exciting news, I got a new couch. Anyway, from Games Workshop, they came out with a really cool new miniature in the Atlan Rough Riders. Attilan Rough Riders. Atlan Tough Riders? Attilan Rough Riders. So leave a comment below on how I got all of the names wrong every single time. Games Workshop every now and then shows off like a little black and white, super close-up snippet of a model that will come out sometime within the next year, because I want to say they showed off the frag grenade spear tup of these new Atlan Riders. I don't know how long ago, but we finally get a look at them. I don't want to say it was surprising that they came out with the Rough Riders, but like we all knew it was coming, but I think they did a really nice job. I think it's a really nice unit for the Imperial Guard who don't have a ton of fast attack choices. I mean, what, the Scout Sentinel and the Valkyrie and what, is that it basically? But I think the Atlan Rough Riders will be a lovely addition. And they have some really, really nice, like unique characteristics to these miniatures. Number one, armor on the horse is a nice touch, even though every single thing in 40k could easily drop a horse, like unbelievably easily. Just a little bit of armor, some pouches, like a blanket thrown over the horse just makes it feel like they are at least somewhat believable in the world of Warhammer 40,000. And I thought that the Rough Riders were going to come back, but I did not think that the Atlan Rough Riders would come back. And they have and they haven't. The only thing that makes them the Atlan Rough Rider, I'm just going to say it different every single time. The Atlan Rough Riders is the helmets with the fuzz and the spike on top, and the gloves with a little bit of fur poking out. I think it's nice. I think it's subtle, and I do think that if you wanted these to be Death Corps of Krieg Rough Riders, although they kind of have their own Rough Riders that are really cool, like those horses with no fur and they look really scary and they have a gas mask on. But like Vostroyan, anything, it could be these guys with just a simple head swap. And I actually think it'd be fine if they all have those gloves. I like them a lot. I think they look pretty good riding these horses. It looks like you're going to get a set of 5 unique poses, which is fine because you're probably going to have to buy a lot because hopefully they're going to have rules where they're kind of squishy. Hopefully the box will be cheap, right? Wouldn't that be nice if Games Workshop did that? But I could see like you bring a squad of 15 to 20 Rough Riders in the hopes that, they take a shot and 12 of them die, but 8 of them still make it to the target to be able to do some damage with their frag grenades, or what is the other? The Melta Tip, which the Melta Tip, strength +2, AP -4, damage 3, would actually make these pretty darn good at doing some vehicle and some heavy stuff destroying, which is really nice. These are going to be suicide troops. I mean, it says in the article that it takes a brave soldier to climb up on a horse and charge anything in the 41st millennia, but I think that is very, very true. I really dig these models. Would they fit in with the normal, like, Cadian style guard that most people have? I think they would. The color choices that Games Workshop decided to paint to these models is like blue and like a dark maroon, which could kind of fit for Death Corps of Krieg. Like if I just photoshopped the little Atlan head off of this guy and replaced it with Death Corps of Krieg, I think it would look nice. And if that was green or maybe even camouflage, the cape draped over the horse, I think it would look very kind of modern militaristic, even though it's a very old concept of dudes on horses with pikes. Technically not a pike, it's a spear. I know, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. But I really like these models. I think they're cool. I think it's a really nice addition to the Imperial Guard. And a few articles ago, they teased that there would be more Imperial Guard stuff coming. And I think the last thing that they said was that there was going to be a very large thing coming for the Imperial Guard. They showed off a silhouette of a large tank, like a tank that looks like exactly like an M1's Abrams tank, like a really modern looking tank. So it's kind of fun that they just slipped in another little something that we weren't expecting. I really like it. And speaking of things I like, these aren't super new, but Games Workshop has shown off some new Chibis. And if you all remember from ages ago, eons of battle ago, perhaps, I painted up a bunch of Games Workshop's Chibis, and I really, really like them. I like Chibis. I think they're just cute and fun. Especially they're fun with things that are horrible. Like Warhammer 40,000 is grim and dark, And so I think that it makes it even funnier when they're chibiified. And so Games Workshop has shown off some new chibis. The previous set of chibis was 5 unique dudes, and they have produced another 5 unique miniatures. A new classic Space Marine, which is pretty good, although because, regular Space Marines and Primera Space Marines look pretty much identical, except for the helmet. It looks pretty much identical, but it's a nice touch. And I do like the old Screamer face of the Space Marines. A really nice Commissar, which the out of the box paint application on this is hilarious. But I think this model, the Commissar, would be the funniest model to repaint because, there's so much you can do with it. And it's just so weird and awful. I don't know. It's just the idea of a Commissar as a cute little guy with a cute little anime face and you paint a big old scar and some dirt. It's just really funny to me. Another model I really like from this new chibi range is the Inquisitor. And it's a witch hunter Inquisitor with a flamethrower and a power sword and the little pilgrim hat. And this model also I'm really excited to get and repaint because she has a very stern look on her face, which is a very funny thing with just this giant head. It's great. I cannot wait to get my hands on this model. I think some lovely non-metallic metal on her armor and a crackling power sword held in her tiny little Calvin and Hobbes hand. And another Space Marine, another retro Space Marine, actually a very retro Space Marine because it is taking the artwork from the very first Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader Codex, where all of the Imperial Fist Beaky Marines are kind of standing on a pile. It's not exactly, I guess they're on a little hill, but it always looked like an actual pile of Space Marines. But he's just pointing, a little beaky, pointing his plasma pistol and holding an orc head. And what's great is the orc head has a really poor application of wash to it, so it kind of looks like he's holding Pickle Rick or some weird vegetable. Oh, and he's kind of swinging it. I think this model, all of these need a little bit of paint touch-ups, but the poor quality paint application already on them is also kind of funny and adds to the charm. But I like him a lot too. The odd model out is the Tempestus Scion. I feel like the Tempestus Scions might be a little bit too specific. It's not an Imperial Guard, and it's not Kazarkin. It's a member of the Ordo Tempestus, and they've got, I don't know, it just doesn't look that 40k. It looks 40k, the actual Tempestus Scions look 40k, especially standing next to a Tarox Prime and all of that cool stuff. But it just kind of looks like a space soldier from a video game. All of these, I love that all of these guys look very upset and stern, even though they're chibis. But he's got his beret with a massive button on the side. I don't know. It's good. It's a good sculpt. It's a very funny model, but I think it was a poor choice. I would have loved to have seen an Eldar or an Orc or any, they already did a Skitarii, but maybe they could do a Skitarii Vanguard instead of a Skitarii Ranger. Yeah, I think there were better picks than a Tempestus Scion. I wonder how these occur. Does the chibi artist just get a menu from Games Workshop? It's here's what you can have. And there wasn't much, and so he decided to go with the Tempestus Scion. Or do they get inspired by models from the Games Workshop range? And then they're just you know what? These 5. We'll do these 5 this year. And then in 2 years, when we do some more, we'll pick some more ones. I don't know, but I do love a good chibi. But you know what might be even cooler than chibis? These new dice I got. I saw these on Amazon, and I like dice. I have tons and tons of dice because you just get it when you're at the friendly local game store and you see the really pretty Cheez-Ix dice or whatever cool stuff they got by the cash register. And I always pick up a little something here or there, but I saw these on Amazon and I absolutely love them. These are Lynx 6-sided bullet dice. They come in a really nice tin that's the exact size of a deck of playing cards, and it comes with 6 beautiful brass bullet dice, and they're so much fun. They're really, really well made. There's a ton of these on Etsy and Amazon. I got these. They were kind of expensive, but the other dice had terrible reviews. I don't know. Some of them seem to be recasts of these Lynx dice, and some of them seem to be a slightly different design, but you could see the 3D printing layer lines from when they did a bad job of casting their original prototypes. And the other ones, some of them are plastic, which I actually could see plastic versions of these bullet dice being nice because these are brass. They feel like bullets. They're very heavy. But I could see plastic ones being nice. Like if you're like an orc player and you need a giant fistful of dice, plastic would be nice. But man, these are quality. They are a single cast piece of brass with really nice recessed numbers that are easy to read. I've rolled these over and over and over, and they work flawlessly. I was a little worried because they do have a flat bottom that actually does have the little primer dimple and the logo links written on the side, like where you would see the actual type of bullet, like written on the rim of the bullet. But I was worried that they might land upright occasionally, but they don't. There's just too much mass here. They always fall over and then display a number. But I saw these, and also the lovely, lovely packaging. I ended up actually buying a second set so that I could have one set of 6 beautiful in the packaging to display on the shelf. And then I could have 6 more, which 6, by the way, is the perfect number of dice for Kill Team. I don't know if you can actually roll more than 6 dice at a time in a single game of Kill Team. But yeah, these are lovely. The only thing that has me very slightly worried is the copper paint on the bullets. Just no paint is permanent, truly, and especially paint on metal. And so I do think, if you're really rattled around in your hand forever or just constantly rolling them on a table, especially if you don't have a dice box or you're working on a neoprene mat, the paint's gonna come off. It's just the way the world works. But I do love these. They're absolutely gorgeous. They feel lovely in the hand. They have tons of weight to them. They smell like brass. They are wonderful. And I am super excited to use these in my next game of Kill Team. They sound, well, they don't quite sound like bullets because bullets are mostly hollow and they've got a bunch of different stuff on them. But I love it. I love it. I buy a lot of Warhammer stuff and wargaming stuff and miniatures and paint and stuff. And these bullet dice are my most favorite purchase in a while. They're just so lovely. But those dice are more hobby adjacent than hobby. And you know what? Games Workshop also came out with a whole bunch of hobby adjacent stuff in some brand new miniature tools. Games Workshop famously makes all of the tools necessary to put together, assemble, and construct these wargaming models, and they charge an absolute premium for the privilege. I remember getting into the hobby, and I never really had any of the Games Workshop stuff. I think I did buy their pin vise, which was actually 2 pin vices ago from Games Workshop, and it was fine. And I was also given a pair of Games Workshop clippers, which actually were very nice. But looking at the new products, 4 new Citadel tools are about to make your Warhammer hobby better than ever. They have to title it something. They have come out with a new drill, a new mold line remover, a new set of clippers, and a new hobby knife. And let's just run through these. The new hobby cutter. So they've actually gone back to the older style of a little bit more ergonomic and plastic in the design, which I actually think is good. Their previous set were lovely looking tools using a lot of aluminum parts and plastic parts, machine screws. They looked very attractive, but you don't need your tools to look good. You need them to function really well. And even if they function well and look good, is it worth $25 more than just buying a generic version of the thing? No, the answer is no. The new clippers look fine. They are gonna cost $50. No. For less than $50, you can buy a really nice set of God Hands, which is a really, really popular set of hobby clippers for Gundams. I think they're going for around $50 right now. I think the price might be a little inflated right now because I think they're having production issues. Or the Tamiya Cutters, the Tamiya Flush Cutters are also excellent, and I think those are only $25 or $30. So I don't see any reason to actually go for the Citadel clipper unless you've got the cash and you need the clippers right now and they're hanging right there on the peg. The new clip, all these tools are gonna be fine, but then when the price comes into it, that is when the problems are gonna start to arise. The next tool, the mold line remover. This is something I didn't know about until Games Workshop made their mold line remover. and it's just a piece of metal. It's a piece of metal, like hardened, mild steel, or not mild steel, hardened steel, so that it's got sharp corners and you scrape it along a mold line. I've never used one before. I have not heard amazing things about them. Games Workshop's previous mold line remover was really fat and chunky. And so from the people who used it, I heard that it was fine. It scraped mold lines really well, but you couldn't get it into every nook and cranny, which for me means that it's bad, because if I have to use the mold line remover and then switch back to the back of my hobby knife like I would normally do, why would I switch back and forth when the hobby knife could also just do the entire project without having to ever put it down or switch tools? So the new mold line remover looks like an improvement in every single way. The handle actually looks comfortable. They have extended the length of the actual blade, I guess, the metal protrusion. They've added a little divot, a little triangular divot for scraping the edge of the base. It seems like a great improvement over the last tool. But for $25, maybe keep using your $1 X-Acto knife that is able to do the entire job perfectly and it's fine. I don't know. Kudos to Games Workshop for doing a really good job with it, but I still don't see it as a very useful tool. And speaking of very useful tools, next up is the Games Workshop hobby knife. And, I actually like the look of this. I think it would be pretty ergonomic. I don't like that there's so much plastic kind of covering the actual hobby blade. I just could kind of want that off of there. It could be for safety. It could be for ergonomics. I haven't held it in my hand, so I can't say for sure, but there's not that much to talk about with the hobby knife, so I gotta get into the nitty gritty. And speaking of nitty gritty, $35. $35. The only thing separating this from a normal X-Acto knife is the tightening knob is in the back as opposed to in the front, which I think is sort of a nice touch, especially if you want to do a more ergonomic handle. Although there is also the Excel hobby knife, which comes in a bunch of fun colors. It has a very ergonomic handle. I think it has a rubberized handle, so it's even less slippery in your hand. And it also has the tightening knob in the back, and it's just way better. Oh, and it's $7. I'm sorry, Games Workshop, but these prices are ridiculous. And the last tool that Games Workshop has shown off. All of these tools are available to pre-order. Don't. The new hobby drill. And once again, I have to give Games Workshop props because they did a much better job making a drill than the previous drill. The previous drill, the huge, humongous flaw about it is that it used collets instead of a chuck. Collets are just these little plastic tubes that you take off and you put in, and then you tighten the nut down, and it pinches the collet around the drill bit. And the really frustrating thing about those collets is you have to use the appropriate size collet for the drill bit you want to use. There's a little bit of slack. You can go up a tiny bit, a tiny fraction of an inch in size before you have to put on a new collet. But it's frustrating. Either they're stored in the handle, or on Games Workshop's previous drill, it was a double-ended collet, so you had to undo the tightening knob and then take out the collet, flip it around, put it back in, retighten the tightening knob, and then put your drill bit in, and then tighten it down. It's a terrible design when we now have chucks. And chucks are essentially the same thing, but it's a collet built into the actual device. It's usually 3 or 4 claws, and as you tighten them down, they just pinch. And you can get any size, you can get fat, you can get skinny. And so their new drill actually uses a chuck, which is a wonderful improvement and makes this worlds better than their previous product. However, you can buy lovely pin vices with chucks for like $8 on Amazon. I think the one I bought was $10 and it came with tons and tons of bits instead of 4 like Games Workshop does. So good job for Games Workshop for making a much better quality tool than you did before, but the price tag of $35 is going to be a pass. For $35, you can get really, really nice pin vices. I mean, you're almost getting into the territory where you can get like a really cheap Dremel tool that you can swap out blades and it'll make the drilling for you. Although you do have to be careful with Dremel tools because sometimes that really high spin rate can mean that you actually damage or melt the plastic. But if you're just a little careful, it'll be fine. For $35, that might just a decent pin vise or a Dremel tool might be something more to look into than Games Workshop's thing. So Weird. I've praised all of these tools, but don't buy them. If you have cash, I always say if you have cash, buy games and models and cheap out as much as you possibly can on supplies. Don't buy huge paint sets. Get the 1 or 2 paints that you actually need. Don't buy the Games Workshop X-Acto knife when you can buy a perfectly good hobby knife for like $1, and it'll serve you well for decades and decades of hobbying. Yeah, good old Games Workshop. But I do appreciate that they do a good job of like not leaving you high and dry. They're like, our kits require these sorts of tools. And so maybe the great thing about these new tools is that you're like, oh, I probably should have a drill, some nippers, and a knife. So I'm gonna hop on Amazon and purchase all 3 of those things for about $13 instead of spending the crazy money that Games Workshop asks for. And the thing I saw on Warhammer Community that actually got me really excited was they gave some rules previews of the new Kill Team Shadowvault box. That is the box that comes with the Kazurkan and the Necron Immortal / Deathmark / Cryptek / Baby Cryptek, with a couple of the little Necron spiddly guys coming in as well. It's a really interesting box, only coming 40 days after the last Kill Team box. Technically a different quarter, but technically I don't care because it's still really, really quick turnaround time for me. But they showed off that these new rules, specifically for the Necrons, the box comes with the Technomancer, a type of Cryptek that wears a Canoptek cloak, and he's wearing a cloak that swings down and becomes a giant Necron scarab that I guess does his walking for him while he just kind of hangs above it. It's a really cool model, standing on a huge 50mm base, which is the biggest base size we've seen for a model in Kill Team. But that's just what we all assumed that the team was. It was 5 Deathmarks and this one guy, but it's actually going to contain rules for the Psychomancer and the Chronomancer, 2 of the other plastic Cryptek models that Games Workshop makes. Crypteks are the wizards of the Necrons. They're not necessarily part of the royal court. I mean, they're literally part of the royal court, but they don't have any power or sway, or like they don't really command troops. They are really just advisors for the Necron Lords. The Necron Lords don't bestow any power to the Crypteks, but the Crypteks sort of do have a lot of sway in the goings on because they actually know how to operate all of the machinery for the Necron. So if a lord is really bad to his pet wizard, the wizard can just make the Necron stop working. So the Crypteks are a very important thing. And so but what's interesting about this is it's got rules for those models that don't come in the box. And so this Necron Kill Team is actually a lot closer to the White Dwarf rules that we've seen for other factions like the Genestealer Cult and the Wormblade, and the Harlequin troop in the Void Dancers. Both of those rules in their White Dwarf compendiums, or White Dwarf magazines, contain rules for taking other elite or HQ choices from the Warhammer 40,000 product line and bringing them into Kill Team. And so it's the first time we're seeing something like that where one of the big Kill Team boxes doesn't necessarily come with everything that it has rules for, which I don't know how I feel about that. I like more rules and more diversity, and I think it's going to make this Necron Kill Team a lot more interesting. But it also is just a little frustrating that it doesn't come with everything in the box that it actually has rules for, because that's kind of been a rule up until this point with these large doubles boxes for Kill Team. So I don't really know. I would love to know how you guys feel about that. Is Games Workshop ripping you off, or is it just cool to get more stuff to play with? Also, it's going to contain, at least according to the article, it's going to have rules for the Chronomancer and the Psychomancer, but what about the poor little Plasmancer? I love the Plasmancer Cryptek, and so I wonder, is it going to have all 4 rules for the 4 different types of Crypteks, or is it only going to have 3? And the poor little Plasmancer is going to be left out to dry, and he's going to be stuck over in Big 40K, and he doesn't get to go play with the cool kids in Kill Team. But I thought that was just really interesting. Kill Team is a very fun, interesting, and dynamic game, and it's also interesting to constantly be getting new stuff for it because I feel like it gives you a little bit of an insight, maybe not an insight into Games Workshop, but just a look at the craziness going on. Like, how long do they take to write the rules? How hard do they work on the rules? Is it one person? Is it a whole team? How are they play tested? Kill Team is Kill Team, I think, is Games Workshop's most interesting product right now. I mean, Tempestus Titanicus is kind of neat. And no, I take it all back. Age of Sigmar is so cool. Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, Warhammer 40,000, Adeptus Titanicus, and then maybe what's the flying games? Spaceship Fly Aroundy? Aeronautica Imperialis, that's what it's called. That's my tier list for Games Workshop games at the moment. It could change, I don't know. Maybe Underpants is a really fun game. I actually have some Underpants models. I think they're there or there. But yeah, I'll have to get those painted up and maybe try to get a game in so I can see and judge just how good that game is. But speaking of toys and games and where you can get them, I got my copy of Shadowvault from Valhalla Hobby, a wonderful local game store that also has a wonderful online store and offers a nice discount on Games Workshop products. And they have a wide selection of other really cool games like Malifaux. Oh, I love Malifaux. So many beautiful, super cool models. And if you shop with the code EOB10, you can get 5% off your first order. And once you've got all those cool miniatures, you're gonna need some terrain for them, and that's where the Eons of Battle Patreon might come in handy. If you sign up, there's a welcome pack that includes Dawn of War, Space Marine, Imperial Guard, and Eldar Terrain. We also have one extra episode of Eons of Battle every single week where we critique our viewers' models and give them some ideas of how to improve. And we also have a weekly hobby live show, sort of, where we just hop into a Discord server and we just chit-chat the night away. It is wonderful. Oh, and we also have merch. Link in the description. I'm gonna go roll my new bullet dice a lot. Thanks for watching.